Welcome to the Lion's Den, where we equip, encourage, and challenge you to live boldly and walk faithfully. I'm Bradley. This is Cooper. And today we're going to talk about people pleasing.
Yeah, which for both of us in conversations we've had is a real problem, something
Yeah.
that we really navigate through. We actually had a conversation last night about this, saying that we might not actually be friends, but we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
are people pleasers enough that's like we just can't tell each other we don't like each other
Yeah,
yet. So
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
we're just like, I don't want to upset him, so I'm just gonna keep hanging out. And then you do the same to me.
exactly. Yeah, it's exactly it. But it's a very real thing. I know that a lot of people definitely have this as maybe something they battle with, struggle with, maybe something they don't even know they're dealing with, and it can
Mhm.
kind of like sneak up on you, and all of a sudden, before you know, I would say people pleasing is one of those things that kind of like lies beneath the surface. It's not
Right.
necessarily something that is outward, or even something that people would look at and be like, "Oh, that person has like a negative trait of people pleasing,"
Right.
because
Some
people
people,
look at it
yeah.
good, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, well, people are pleased.
Yep, exactly.
So they're like what they see, because you're giving them everything that they want. But I think for me, what I used to do and like still struggle with, sometimes is like compromising my own values
For sure.
at like it's at the expense of me to make other people happy.
For sure.
Yeah, which and the nice thing is like having something like tangible like the Bible that like has these values that you're like, okay. Because also I think people pleasing for somebody that might not have like a Christian foundation or or a relationship with Jesus is like they don't know who they are.
For sure.
And so they are whoever you want them to be,
Yep.
which gets you into some dangerous situations, I feel like.
Well, their identity becomes what people say about them. And that
Right.
can be one of the most brutal things because then now you're basically a victim to whatever anybody says. And
Yeah.
like, they say something, maybe you like it and it's like makes you feel good. And then all of a sudden they start speaking into you and your identity and who you are as a person, which is just yeah, it's just a super slippery slope. And all of a sudden you're like who am I? What am I doing? And
Right.
you
Right.
lose kind of your value and worth that you have for sure.
Yeah. And like also like dealing with conflict as well too,
Yeah.
where like you need to call somebody out for something where it's appropriate, or like somebody calls you out for something, and like for me, if I had a friend before like ever call me out for something, I would be mortified.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm so sorry. But what do you need? Yeah, how do I make it better? But yeah, I feel like yeah, conflict. I mean, um, if you look at what is it in on this, I brought this time. Um, in it's is it in Timothy or Philippians, where Paul calls out they it was like kind of like a newfound revelation that they were preaching the Bible to Gentiles as well.
Mhm.
But there a few of the other apostles decided to not sit with the Gentiles, and that when they were eating, and they decided to um sit with the other apostles or just the Jews alone.
Right.
And Paul just stands up in front of everybody and is like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is exact opposite of what we should be doing. And that is healthy. Here it is. It's in Galatians 2:11 through 14. He called out Cephas, calling him hypocritical. And also Paul says, if I were to aim to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Because those things do not, you know, uh, align with each other.
For sure. Well, and people pleasing, like you're never going to be able to really invoke life change in other people if you're just trying to like please them all the time.
Right.
And so I think that, part of our call as Christians and as believers is like, we walk the life that we do to be the salt and light in the earth. And so
Right.
you want to be able to live your life in a way that it can be a challenge to others. It can be an inspiration to others. It can be all these different things.
Right.
But if you're only ever worried about trying to please people around you, you're not going to be able to have as much of an impact as what God would want you to. But an interesting kind of question with this, so we can kind of maybe dive into, I'll throw you kind of your way, is like
Mhm.
when you think about people pleasing, though, we look at Jesus in his life, and he talked about how serving people was one of the number one things you could do. Like,
Right.
it's I mean, John Maxwell has a quote that says, if service is below you, leadership is beyond you. And
Mm,
so, like,
right.
that serving is literally one of the greatest ways that Jesus showed love. So, how do you differentiate between you trying to serve people around you versus just like people pleasing?
Mm. Well, I think it goes back to that compromising your own values thing,
Hmm.
right? Where like if like for example at youth group the other day or yesterday, um, one of the students was talking about smoking weed.
Hmm.
And I don't and just to be clear, when it comes to like the topic of smoking weed, that's your own conviction between you and God. So I'm not saying like whether you should or shouldn't. That is between you and God, but it does say that we are called to be sober minded. So um I mean I align with the stance of that it's probably not right.
Right.
But this kid, he was talking about smoking weed and talking about it kind of like bragging about it in a way. He was like, back when I did smoke weed, this funny, crazy thing happened.
Right.
And I think if you're like in like a people pleasing mindset because you want to be there for them and serve them, it's like, okay, I want this kid to like me. But no, like, I mean, we were kind of like, yeah, that's not good.
Right.
So versus I think old me would be like, yeah, dude, one time when I smoked weed too,
It's like, I
like,
remember that.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's just like, yeah, not compromising your own values is kind of that differentiating factor between like service and people pleasing because you can serve others and show and be a good example to them, but not be like shakable in compromising who you are to drop your standard to where they are, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good, yeah, really, really good way to put it. I know for me, one of the things that I always kind of keep in my mind when it comes to kind of differentiating those two things too is like, who am I elevating?
Right.
So when I'm people pleasing, I'm actually trying to elevate myself.
Right.
I'm trying to get people to like me more. I'm trying to get people to accept me more. When I'm serving people, I'm trying to elevate Jesus. I'm
Right.
not actually trying to do anything
Totally.
that elevates me as a person. It
Totally.
actually just makes Jesus, puts him on a higher standard of saying, like, I'm serving because of the way that God served me, because Christ did the ultimate sacrifice for me. I'm now
Right.
going to serve. So the question I always ask myself is like, who am I elevating in these circumstances? And it kind of helps, yeah, helps me kind of at least have a little bit of that guide of kind of how do I know what I'm doing and what this looks like, and yeah.
Right, 100%. And, my notes are super relevant right now, which is awesome. Um, but in Second Timothy, uh, Paul talks about how soldiers don't care about what civilians think,
Hmm.
and they only care about what their commanding officer, the orders that they're getting from their commanding
Right.
officer. And I think about that, just from my past like military background. I think about that like as being so relevant because there was a time, when we were. This is during all the riots in 2020 and everything.
Okay.
We were actually prepared to be deployed for those riots, and it was a crazy situation. And there were definitely people within the military even that aligned with the purpose of like why
Hmm.
uh, these people are rioting. But at the end of the day, the because I was in the National Guard soldiers are going to do the orders that they follow, right? And it doesn't matter what their opinion is in that moment. Um, versus, I mean, my opinion, like when it comes to the Bible, it's like if your opinion is different than the Bible's opinion, then you need to change your opinion.
Right. Yeah.
so
For sure.
so my opinion's always aligned with the Bible. So you don't have that as far as like that divisive kind of like differentiating thing, but also like I'm aiming to elevate, like you just said, you're aiming to elevate Jesus when
Yeah.
you're serving, and you're not concerned about what they're doing or like where they come from or their walk or whatever. It's like, hey, no, this is and like when you're living your life saying, hey, I'm a Christian, you're wearing that, right? And you're
For sure.
representing Jesus when you're telling people that you're a Christian. I always think about like the same thing as like in the military, you put on the uniform, you're representing something bigger than yourself.
Right.
Like you're representing the US military. So when you mess up and you do something that compromises what the military represents, then you make every military member look like they are the same way as you, which is where like people like Christians get a bad rap because you have people that preach the prosperity gospel or people that preach things that are not rooted in biblical truth and they're not representing Jesus in the right way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting how easy it is though to like fall into these traps of feeling like you're like people pleasing. It's I know for me it happens all the time. I actually told you this story a little while ago, but one of the worst people pleasing moments of my life
Oh yeah.
was
This is a great story.
it's horrible. It's horrible. I actually hate to even admit this publicly, but this shows you the level of people pleaser that I am, which I think is important because I think a lot of these times when Brad and I are talking about these things, we're not coming from them from the sense of like, hey, like we've got it all figured out, just so like we can lay
Yeah.
that out. These are things that we're dealing with, we're battling with, and maybe we've navigated a little bit, and we've learned some things along the way
Yeah.
that we just want to share. But yeah, for me, people pleasing is always a big tough one. So I after I finished playing basketball, I had damaged my shoulder. So I had shoulder surgery once while I was playing, and I got a second shoulder surgery on the same one afterwards. And so I was going to physiotherapy after my surgery, and I would go in probably once or twice a week, and they would do their normal rehab stuff, and it was all good. And so I go into my regular appointment. I will clarify to somebody I'd already seen before. So like this was a reoccurring appointment. This wasn't my first time seeing them. I go in and the lady is amazing, awesome physiotherapist. I She was great, but she starts working on my shoulder, and it's an hour long session. She does like her whole treatment, does the full 9 yards, does like the tens machine, hooks up that, puts some ice, does like massages, stretching, all these things. Um, at the end of it, uh, I I walked out, didn't say a word. Everything was good. Um, for the whole hour, she was working on the wrong shoulder. So this
Oh
entire
man.
time, my left shoulder I had surgery on, she does the whole hour-long treatment on my right shoulder. And because I am just such a people pleaser, I couldn't say anything. I literally just let her do it the whole time.
And you're like,
So
nope, that's good. Yeah, it actually feels really
it's like,
good
yeah,
right
she's
now.
like probably like wondering, she's like, wow, you're moving it really well. It's like, yeah, it's because it's the good one. But anyway, I was literally like, yeah, it feels great. Awesome. I literally walked out and never said a word. She does this whole treatment on the wrong shoulder. And I never went back ever again after that because I was like, I cannot stand walking back in there. And she probably goes back to her notes and sees that it was the wrong shoulder. So that
That's
was,
hilarious.
yeah, a deep struggle for me is definitely people pleasing
Yeah.
is a thing.
And you never talk to her ever again.
No. No, I never went back. I never talked to her again. I
To save yourself
yeah,
like from like the like shame of,
yeah,
like have that
yeah.
conversation.
And I don't even know why like I thought it was a good like a people pleasing thing to do. She probably would have been like, "Oh yeah," and just started working on the other shoulder. No problem. Probably had a long day, whatever.
Yeah.
But for some reason in me, I was like, she's gonna feel bad. She's gonna think that like she's not good at her job. All these like thoughts come into my mind,
Yeah.
and so I let her
She
work on my arm for an
probably
hour.
she
It's crazy.
probably if you would have told her afterwards after she did all that, she probably actually would have been mad that you didn't correct her
For
earlier.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's actually a good point though, because
Yeah.
usually with people pleasing, we're not helping anybody.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that was a perfect
100%.
example of like I wasn't helping her at all.
Right.
Like it didn't help me, it didn't help her. We both ended up leaving not being able to like accomplish what the goal of that hour was.
Yeah.
So wasted time now for everybody.
Were you like one of those kids growing up that like you go over to a friend's house and like parents ask if you're hungry and you say no just because you don't want to like be a burden?
100%. Yeah. I actually remember I would go to my friend's house. I would get in trouble because anytime someone would ask me, like, do you want water? Or do you want like milk or
Yeah.
something? I would always be like, sure. Like I would never say yes or no. I remember one time one of
Yeah.
my friend's dads, like came over to me, he's like, just say yes or no.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, just give me an answer. But
Yeah.
I was like, sure. I didn't
Yeah.
know like how
You're
oh, it
like,
was horrible.
if you want to give it to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
yes, but I don't want to be in the way. Yeah.
He's like, that's why I'm offering it to you. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So
Totally.
I was the worst.
That's
Love
so
that.
funny. I never did that. I don't think. Maybe I did when I was really young, but I think I probably had somebody's dad like yell at me the same way.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, I should stop doing this. But for me, what I would do always like people pleasing is like I would comp like I had like whoops, I had my own like self values and like, standards that I held myself to even previous to being a Christian, but I would I like that would all fly out the window if it was to make somebody else happy.
Right.
And so like when I was in high school, I was always like the butt end of the joke because I would
Yeah,
be funny and stupid and like I would just do something dumb to make everybody laugh.
for sure.
And I would not like myself for doing these things. I would like go home and be like, oh man, like why did I do that? Or like whatever. But in the moment, I'm like, well, they're laughing and
Yeah,
like, everybody's happy and I'm well liked. It was like my whole stick, I feel like to become liked in social settings was to like do dumb, stupid things.
mhm,
And that was just complete opposite to who I actually like identified myself as being. And then yeah, I don't know what changed, but I was just like, I need to not do this anymore. I think I mean tying it back, I think we mentioned this before, but just like the identity in Christ is like that gives you that security. I feel like because yeah, for the worst of the worst, when it comes to people pleasing is like you just don't know who you are. And so you're just like whoever everybody else wants you to be. And that was me for it forever. So I just wanted to be liked. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be cool. I used to for even my clients in like real estate, whatever their political opinion is or whatever, I had the same one.
you're in.
Yeah. I was like, yep, I'm voting for Kamala or yep, I'm voting for Trump. This was in the past, so it wasn't actually this relevant, this soon, but it's probably, yeah, the previous one. But yeah, now I don't actually, if I was to face the political conversation again now,
It's like the realization, what would I do?
yeah, what would I do now? Because yeah, I haven't had that conversation in a while. But when I was living in Seattle, politics are such a relevant topic in Seattle, and it was always something that would come up among clients because it's just everybody has the same view in Seattle. Everybody's liberal in Seattle, right? So everybody has the same view, so everybody assumes that you have the same view.
Right.
And I'm not saying that like I definitely have some ish, like liberal, more like mindset
Right.
things, but definitely a conservative.
Right.
And so, like, but I'm just moderate, right? And but like people would be like, yeah, they'd say something and just assume that I believe the same thing, and I'd be like, yeah, totally, like, just to make them feel happy. I just didn't want to get into it.
For sure.
Yeah, it was so funny.
And that stuff happens all the time. I remember, yeah, like we used to, even as kids, we would do that where you would literally be like, "Oh, I really love this thing," just to see if like other kids would be like, "Yeah, I love it too," and then be like, "I hate that thing," and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah,
they're like, "I hate it too." And it's
yeah.
like, what just happened?
That reminds me that have you seen the episode of The Office where what's the dude's name that sings all the time? Have you seen The
I haven't
Office?
really seen much of The Office.
Have you seen the Canadian Office?
No,
There's a
I
Canadian
didn't know there
version, I'm
was a
pretty sure.
Canadian. Okay,
I'm pretty sure, or maybe it's UK.
that's
I
funny.
don't know. Different country. Yeah, one of you different countries. But there's an episode of The Office where this one dude, he recently gets hired and he's like, I'm gonna get in good with the boss. And that's
Okay,
the boss is Steve Carell.
yeah,
And and it was the same thing. It was like whatever opinion he had, he shared the same opinion. He's like, I like spaghetti. Oh, I love spaghetti too. You know what? Actually, I hate spaghetti. Oh yeah, actually, I don't really like it
yeah.
either. Like, and he had the same opinion, and it actually like made Steve Carell, um, what's his name in the show? God,
Oh man,
Steve Carell. What is it?
this is bad. I feel like people are gonna hate me because I don't watch The Office now. I literally, but I'm not a.
I've well, this is worse because I can't
You
remember
can.
the main character's name, and I've seen like every episode. But Steve Carell, he actually doesn't like him because of it.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't like this guy because he doesn't he's not himself around me.
for
So
sure.
he doesn't know what to think of him. He's like just like a shifting with the wind kind of person.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, which is funny.
It's true. And yeah, I like, man, if there's anything our world needs more right now, it's just like authenticity, I think.
Totally.
And so, and I think people just cling to that. And so sometimes I think, yeah, exactly that example where we're trying to say, hey, this is, I want to just fit in. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes to just like, fit the mold. I think the best thing that you can do is just be who you've been called to be, because that
Right.
will literally be where you shine the most. Because the reality is that, like, no one can fulfill the call on your life other than you. Because
Mhm.
God has created you as an individual to fulfill the life that He has created and destined you to fulfill.
Right.
And so if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it.
Right.
And if you're not living in that kind of lane that God's called you to, you're also never going to reach the potential that you have in your life. And
Mm.
so people will,
Yes.
like, yeah, like they'll respect you more. They'll, like, be able to, celebrate you more. All those things that maybe are your priority initially, if you take those and remove those as your priority and say instead, I'm just going to chase after God and live out the call and purpose He has for me, all of a sudden all those things you're looking for end up coming to you anyway.
Right.
Which is
Absolutely.
really kind of interesting.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was just listening to a sermon on this, and the pastor, he says your people pleasing is ruining you from fulfilling God's calling on your life. Says that exactly. Which is funny because you just mentioned the same thing. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me even, I mean, I know we're just getting this podcast started and everything, but um, you know, a year ago, I would have never thought about doing something like this, even if it was something that like I was like truly passionate about, or because I I'd be too scared of what other people would think.
For sure.
I'd be too worried that, oh, if I'm gonna do a Christian podcast, that I could, because my business is my own with real estate.
Hmm.
The people that aren't Christians, what are they gonna think?
For sure.
And this ties back into what we talked about, I think, in the previous episode of how big God is.
Yeah.
It's like if you were doing what God's calling is on your life, like, and God wants you to, have business in your life, or put you in the right circles to be with people that are, going to be like-minded and things like that. Like, God is going to give you everything that you want and need. And, like, who are you to, like, put that in your own control of, like, thinking, oh, I don't want to offend these certain people
Mhm.
because we don't have the same values, like that. I mean, I just hope and pray that they see that, people like us are normal, likable people, and that rubs off on them, and they at least respect it, because I think
Right.
people that aren't people pleasers, they are respected, at
Mhm.
least, and people are always going to respect your boundaries, respect your views on things. They might not agree,
Mhm.
but at least, you're not putting yourself in a situation where you end up doing something that's totally outside of the realm of what you would normally do, right? Because you want to make them happy.
For sure, and it almost works too as like a, I don't know, like a little bit of like a snowball effect too with people pleasing. Like, I think it that's what I think makes it kind of like of a sneaky kind of
Yeah.
thing that you deal with. Um, I love the example when we were younger, we used to get in shopping carts and we push each other down hills.
Right.
A lot of fun. But it was literally the
Yeah.
greatest. And I remember literally so clearly one time where I was the lucky one that got to go in the shopping cart this time,
Yeah.
and my friends literally started pushing me down a hill. And I remember at the beginning, like, it's like super fun. You got this big smile, you're laughing, you're having a great time. And then all of a sudden, as you start like picking up speed down the hill, that like smile goes like down a little bit. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden, your heart rate starts going, and it's like, I don't know if I really like this anymore. And
Yeah.
soon the smile turns into a scream. And I remember in this particular case, I just was like barreling down, and I literally hit a curb, and just like the whole thing flipped. I get like
Flips over.
rolled
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like crying on the ground. It was just horrible. But I think that with our people pleasing, it can work a lot the same, where all of a sudden it may start and it feels good because people are going to give you responses that you like.
Right.
And so maybe, by doing some of these people pleasing things, you do get like a few more friends, or you do get a few more people that like talk
Totally.
to you or do these things. And then all of a sudden it's like, I need to do more. I need to
Right.
up my game. I need to do more of this. And then before you know it, you're in that shopping cart going at a pace that you can't keep up with anymore.
Yeah.
And usually that's what leads to like things like burnout and things like not being able to, you know, have like fulfill the things that you need to do in a day.
Right.
Your relationships start to get frayed. All these different things start to happen because now you're at a pace that you can't keep up with anymore.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Or even like you're doing drugs that you never thought that you would do
Yeah,
because like everybody around you is doing them,
for sure.
like things like that. Not saying that from experience, but I mean, I obviously have seen it 100% where it's like somebody that like you would never expect them to do something like that, and then like you're like, dude, what happened?
Yeah.
And
There's
they don't even know why because they don't have the like awareness of like that they are just trying to please people around them.
Mhm.
And I think that's one thing too is like speaking about something like this and the like just putting awareness on it of like, hey, if this is you, like this is where you could lead. And then you start to look back, oh, actually I have found myself down this road of almost crashing in the shopping cart or crashing in the shopping cart, but then I had no idea why that happened.
Yeah.
And then so they just get back in the shopping cart and go down another hill and just say like, "Oh," and then they get the same result and they're like, "Whoa, this is crazy. Why did this happen again?" It's because you're people pleasing, but you don't know like, hey, you need to go not go down on a hill in a shopping cart with no brakes.
For sure. Well, it's true, and the root cause of it is always like that's the key, and I
Yeah.
think that yeah, that's why I think people miss it so often is because they'll look at that situation and say, "Oh, I need to just stop doing those drugs,"
Yeah.
or "Oh, I need to just slow down my schedule," or "I need to
Right.
like
Right.
start saying no to certain things." Um, well, okay, those are symptoms, but
Yeah.
it's not the cause, and
Right.
so the cause of it, if you dig a little bit deeper, is that there's a real deep root of people pleasing, which if you even dig beneath the surface of people pleasing, there's even a farther root from that.
Yeah.
And I know for me, it's insecurity, it's
Yeah.
inadequacy. I feel like I'm not good enough.
Totally.
And so that's the root. And like that's what's even deeper. And so I think a lot of times it's being able to, have enough self awareness or great people in your life or whatever it may be. It may be a good church community, people that can speak that truth to you,
Mhm.
where you can spend enough time to actually like assess and dig deep enough to figure out what is really happening here, what is the root cause, what is making me get into that shopping cart over and over again, what is
Right.
making me crash over and over again,
Totally.
because it can get to a point too in your life where all of a sudden like you can have things that happen where you're forced to slow down and like God will literally put things in your way of saying like if you're not gonna figure this out, like you need to slow down. And so I'm gonna help you do that.
Right.
And those situations usually aren't the most pleasant.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, but absolutely necessary too,
For sure.
100%. Yeah, I feel like people that are y I mean, it's just a lack of identity, like you said, an insecurity and lack of identity. Because I mean, I was the same exact way, because growing up, I always felt inadequate because I didn't have all the things that my friends' parents had, and like, I was never in like the position to, you know, I never like won like awards or like things like that like my friends did or whatever. And so it was the same thing. It was like the only way that I could get acceptance or felt like, which is it actually is not the only way that I could get acceptance, but I felt like this was the only way that I was gonna find acceptance was through, you know, making people laugh by being a dumb idiot. you know. Uh,
But you got yeah, again, yeah, you get the response, you get what you're looking for,
Yeah,
and then it
exactly.
feeds it.
But then you get down, I mean, for me, it was like, okay, this is funny like a couple times, right? And they do start to like you, but then the shopping cart is going and you're like towards the end and now nobody respects you.
Right.
And like these friends are not coming to you because like if they're going through something hard in their life or whatever, they're never going to come to you
Yeah.
because they don't have any respect for you. So and they don't necessarily care as very much about your problems either. So you don't have that community around you anymore, and you just kind of feel lonely.
Yeah, you become basically like the court jester of your friend group. Like
Yeah,
it's literally like dance, funny man,
yeah,
dance.
yeah,
And it's like,
exactly.
I don't want to be this anymore.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's like
It's
you
like,
gotta like
oh, I wanted to do
dance.
that at first, but now that I'm here, it's not fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which nobody wants to be in that place. Like nobody wants to, be in that situation. The amount of times I've heard like stand-up comedians that talk about this of like
oh
the
yeah,
reason they got into this is because of like a deep insecurity of like, I needed to find, figure out how to make people laugh so that I felt good about myself. And
totally.
you'll hear countless like people that are in that industry talk about that kind of as like their motivating factor, which is it's interesting. Like, I mean, yeah, I think as humans we do have like a deep need to be loved. Like it is.
Right,
It's a reality. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we're created by God to be loved. It's
right,
just that we were created to be loved by him.
right.
And so that's I think the piece that we miss is that God's love for us is enough.
Right.
And if we can get to a place where we truly believe that, which I'm not saying is a simple task, but you get to a place where you truly believe that and you see what he did by sending his son to die for us so that we could have eternal life relationship with him, the the good news of the gospel message.
Mhm.
Um, if we can understand that God's love is enough and you can live your life with that foundation, my goodness, does it change the way you live?
Yeah,
Because you don't
absolutely.
need everybody else to give you this approval. But yet,
Right.
like I said, the byproduct of that is you will just like exude love to people
Yeah.
around you, and your light shines in a different way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, maybe instead of people pleasing, we should be spirit pleasing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's
You're
good.
like,
Yeah,
that's the only thing we should aim to be pleasing.
for sure.
And yeah, and like we talked about, God is so big that if you are living a life that's pleasing to God, all these things that you are people pleasing instead of spirit pleasing to try to gain, God is, if God wants that for you and that's actually truly what's best for you, like God is going to give you that. Um, but obviously, God is going to save you from a lot of heartache and hardship as well too. But and you're just going to be able to walk with confidence that God is on your side, and so that way, like now I tie it back to what we were talking about earlier. But yeah, now I'm at a place where it's like I don't really care what other people think about me anymore because the only thing that matters is my relationship with Christ, and if I'm in alignment with what God wants for me, and I only care about what the Spirit thinks of me,
Yeah, for sure.
So that yeah, there's nothing else that matters, and I just seek to align people that have the same values as me in that sense now too.
So good. So what you're saying is we're actually friends. It's
Yes,
not a fake.
exactly.
Okay,
It is genuine.
it's good.
You know what's funny actually thinking about that I, is I've had so many like surface level friends in my life where like I keep them surface level on purpose.
Right.
Like I always keep everybody at arm's length, but what's kind of interesting with like becoming friends with you and like the few others like Calvin and John and Damien and everybody in our friend group is like I've been so willing to just like be like let's all be best friends,
Yeah.
and I think it's because we all have the same identity, and I know like the same foundation and values that you guys have are in alignment with mine, which are in alignment with God, that I have so much more like willingness to like open up because I know like I'm not going to get burned the same way that I have in the past from like other people that are of this world,
For sure.
because everybody has their own like past traumas and things, and like you can feel, you can judge somebody by their fruit, right? So if you see the fruits of the spirit in somebody, um versus the desires of your flesh, it's like, okay, if you have the fruits of the spirit in you, I'm like, I know like this is how this person's going to move. It's
Right.
like I'm not like concerned about you screwing me over or like
Right.
being mean to me all of a sudden or whatever, because we have that like mutual respect of like what the Bible says, versus like with people that are of the world. It's like, I mean, people are unpredictable, so it's tough, and that's where you end up people pleasing because you're so worried about what they're gonna think, say, or do because you don't know it, and so you shift the way that they shift versus like, I mean, we don't even I feel like I'm not people pleasing when I'm hanging out with you,
Right.
because we have the same interests and
For sure.
ideas and things. So it's not like it's like I'm gonna be put in a tough position where I have to make a decision that like is gonna make you unhappy,
Right.
right? Versus like some people when you're out, with people that are not rooted in faith, then you are gonna face times where you're gonna be, have to make that decision to where you're probably gonna have to make a decision that's not gonna make them happy. But again, God is so big that God is gonna bless you for that,
Yes.
you know, and that always gives me confidence to not people please anymore. But it's still something I 100% struggle with, and it's like one of my number one prayers for myself, like that I think about all the time is like, God, please take away my people pleasing, because it's yeah, and it's done a lot of good, sometimes in my life though too. People pleasing isn't all bad,
Mhm.
but you just need to have like the guardrails people pleasing without brakes in the shopping cart. You
Yeah.
know, if you had a shopping cart with brakes,
Oh, we're a different scenario.
yeah,
Yeah.
a whole different scenario, and maybe a little less grade to the hill.
Yep. For
And,
sure.
and that's Jesus right there. Jesus is the
The
brakes
breaks.
and a less grade to the hill, and you're good.
It's a good analogy. People are gonna be thinking about that now all the time. Just a shopping cart. It's like, am I in the shopping cart right now?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Am I about to crash? Yeah.
it's a good question. You can ask your friends now. You know, if you're having conversations like, am I in the shopping cart right now? It's
Yeah.
like, do I need to maybe put some brakes on?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
With what you're saying though, do you think? Because I mean, I would challenge to say that one of the biggest things that people are looking for in their life right now is friendship.
Mhm.
Is like having a good community of people. I think it's one of the most important things to surround yourself with good people. I've even
Right.
said to my wife a few times that like I sometimes feel that who I go through life with is more important than even what I'm doing. Like
Right.
the people I'm walking with are going to be who I become. They're going to be the like if you know they say show me your friends, I'll show you who you're going to be. Like that
Right.
that is a reality. So like the people you walk with is so important. So how do you navigate that the deep need that we have as humans to be in community and connection,
Mhm.
but then not trying to just like people please to get that. Like how do you even
Mhm.
for us, obviously, we just now have built this group of people. We haven't known each other all that long, and
Right.
we're
Totally.
super blessed that our relationships are really growing in an amazing way. And we do have a good core group of people that I would say is one of the strongest groups of people that I've been in a part of.
Yeah,
And we
absolutely.
just met each other not that long ago.
Totally.
So how do you navigate that? How do you find that? How do you not people please to find it? Where's good places to look for it? Like what would like some of that look like?
Oh, I mean, I think for Anna and I, my wife Anna, um, we prayed for Christian community. And like this was during this time where we were in the word so much more. We just like realized that like because we are people pleasers, we don't want to be in these situations where we have to make these tough decisions. At least like not as often, and we still we still hang out with a lot of, of our friend group. We still consider it this other friend group still our friend group as well too, but um we prayed for Christian community, and I mean God answered that prayer like so fast and in such an amazing way. And I guess your question was like how we found it.
Yeah.
I think, I guess just through church, really. I mean, I like to play basketball,
Yeah.
and that's how I met John. And John's like, he's like social butterfly, and
He is.
he's like, "Do you want to get coffee next week?" And I was like, "Sure." So I did, but kind of stepping out of my comfort zone of like meeting somebody new like that, and I would be willing to go get coffee with them. But I knew he was. We had that conversation where like I know he's a Christian, he's rooted in faith, but we have similar interests as well too. So it made me like more willing to seek out a friendship with him, and then that led me down the road of like just meeting other people through the church as well too through him, and yeah, that's how we met. Actually, I think we just met like at a service.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just funny. Were you friends with John and Calvin? I mean, you guys just started working together, right?
Me and you literally met within like first 2 weeks of us arriving in Phoenix.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
really know anybody yet.
Yeah, so it's funny how we met, but yeah, I think I was just so much more willing to like put myself out there for like the people that are in the same like mindset and alignment as me, which was rooted in faith. Um, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think that's what you're saying too is I think key because it's important. Like there's a piece of what you just said that's really important for people to hear too is that you also you said you put yourself out there, you were like allowing yourself to be vulnerable in these relationships to allow them to get beyond just surface level.
Yeah,
And I think for a lot of people, they won't allow the scars from past relationships with like friend groups and different things
totally.
to allow them to ever step into like a new one. And
Right.
then, we sit in this place of saying, well, I don't have good friends. I don't have good people. But I think when you do find a good community that, again, aligns with what your lifestyle is, if you look at those people and say, I kind of want to be more like them, I want to,
Right.
surround my people that are going to push me, but also go through life at similar stages. Um, I think, yeah, like having the confidence to put yourself out and say, hey, like I'm gonna lean into this. I'm gonna actually go after it.
Totally.
And I think you do have to be intentional about it. Like, I mean, we again haven't known each other for all that long, like maybe, I don't know what, 5 months maybe.
Yeah.
But we've also probably seen each other literally like,
Like at least once a week for the last five
yeah,
months.
yeah, and sometimes like 4 times a week.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's like,
exactly. Yeah.
there's weeks where we'll literally be like, oh, we're seeing each other every day
Yeah,
this
I'm
week.
like, okay, great. So see you tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that that's intentional. Like when we're doing that and spending time with each other, that's also at a sacrifice of other things we could be doing.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
I could be, doing different things with work, or I could be doing different things with my wife and our son, or these
Right.
different things. But again, what you look for, you find, and what you value is what you're going to put your time into and you're going to
Right.
prioritize. And so I think prioritizing those things is a big piece, and we invested into that,
Yeah.
and it opened those doors. And then the people pleasing side of it is like the big piece is when we were genuine, authentic, leaning into those relationships. We didn't like I didn't feel like I had to be a people pleaser,
Right.
because
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
knew it was like, okay, no, like we're looking for the same thing here. We're
Yeah.
looking for an authentic, genuine
Totally.
relationship.
Here's a question for you. So you have, as a people pleaser,
Mhm.
you have somebody that does not is not somebody that you want to hang out with, kind of like what we joked about at the beginning of the
Yeah.
podcast. You have somebody that is not somebody that you want to hang out with, or that you think that they, are just not in alignment with, like, where you're at with things. Um, are you hanging out with that person?
Yeah, for sure. It's a good question. I mean, it's tough because I kind of have this in different worlds. I would say in like my pastoral role,
Yeah.
obviously, is very different.
Right.
I will give obviously people time. I'll
Yeah.
literally spend time with anybody. In a personal side of things, um, man, I think I'll give anybody my like my love. I'll give anybody like prayers. I'll give anybody those types of things.
Right.
The one piece I'll be a little bit more strict about, I would say, would be giving people time.
Yeah.
And not in the sense of like, oh, I'll like never talk to you, or like, hey, like this is never gonna happen type thing.
Totally.
But again, how much time I'm investing with that person will be different. And I think it also is, yeah, how can I be, the best help to this person? I think in a personal side of things, I'm looking for people that make me better, that I can also make them better,
Right.
where we can, mutually grow in a relationship.
Mhm.
If that's not something that I see, then really by default, and we've experienced this a lot. So this is kind of a bit of a kind of interesting topic for Chas and I, because in a pastoral ministry role,
Mhm.
if you step into a relationship like that with a friend, and we've done it before, where you're trying to seek out a friendship with somebody,
Right.
but it's more of a we're giving to them, and they kind of are looking for like a mentorship thing.
Yeah.
Instantaneously, that turns into like a pastoral relationship,
Right.
and not necessarily one that is like mutually beneficial.
Totally.
And so, not that those are bad, but it changes the dynamic of the relationship. So
Right.
I think I just have to, yeah, like usually I'll just, yeah, be super intentional about like how am I praying about it? How am I like going about what this relationship will look like? And I'll give, yeah, anybody time, and I'll spend time with people, but
Yeah.
just again, we only have so much of it, and so you got
Yeah.
to kind of have priorities and have those things set. I think is important.
Yeah. I think for me, um, I needed to seek out community of other like-minded people, of also being believers, and living their life as such, um, to be able to have more confidence
Mm.
going out in the community of being with people that are non-believers,
Yeah,
of like being in those situations and being around them, and whatever, and having some sort of relationship with them, like that going having my own community of other believers, and then going back into a community of non-believers per se, or people that aren't living their life that way. I just was able to just, like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just gave me the confidence to just like be who I am,
mhm,
instead of, and know that, like, hey, my foundation is in faith, and I'm not going to compromise this. Versus before, I think it would have been really tough to, like, like if you're somebody who is like, hey, I want to start taking my faith more seriously. I've been reading my Bible. I'm having these convictions. And then you go and then you hang out with your friends that aren't having these convictions, that don't read their Bible, and they're doing all these things that are of the world. It's really hard to like you're living kind of like two different lives in a sense. Like
For
it's hard
sure.
to be around those people, and like your identity was all of these things that they also aligned with. So they know you as that. And then if you don't have a new community that knows you as the person that God has called you to be,
Mhm.
and then you step into and then now you step into that community, there you're gonna have that more confidence, but they're always gonna just kind of, and it's not facetious facetious. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not like in a bad motive per
Right.
se. It's just like their perception of you is just that's how it is. And you want to be liked. And so you're gonna still maintain that or try to maintain that same perception just naturally of who they originally were friends with, right? And it's not like you're completely different when you become a Christian, but you definitely live your life a lot different
For sure.
than when you weren't,
Yeah.
and your values and priorities are a lot different. And so yeah, having it's much easier having a community of other believers to uplift you. It's like, okay, like these are my people.
Mhm.
And then you're going and being out in the world. You can be in these other social situations where they're like they had a different view of you, but it's not like it's like, no, this is who I am now. And they're gonna respect you for that. And if they're good friends, they're 100% gonna respect you for that.
And you do have to fight for that though a little bit for sure. Like, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes the hardest thing in the world as people pleasers, it talks about in the Bible, but like when they were going to preach the gospel, the disciples went out and it said, if people aren't willing to hear what you have to say, like dust your feet off and move to the next place.
Right.
That's the hardest thing in the world as a
Right.
people pleaser is being able to say, like, I need to prioritize my calling over, the pleasing of people. And so, like, to be able to say, hey, this is what I need to do. And sometimes it is dusting your feet off and moving to a different place and continuing on and not necessarily moving to a different place, but just
Right.
continuing on to maybe different friend groups, finding new people, whatever it may be.
Totally.
I mean, even Jesus, literally, the one place where his ministry was not as successful was back home. Like when
Right.
he went
Yeah.
back home, he couldn't do the
Because they
same
have these
things.
preconceived ideas of him that they
Yes.
already had. They're like, oh, this is this kid,
Yeah.
and now who does he think he is?
The son of God. Like what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I think that's the same for us is that there is
Yeah.
those things where we have to be conscious of it and it's important to fight for those things because it is like something that can really have a deep impact on you. I can share even from my like story a little bit early on in my ministry career this happened to me where super big people pleaser as you know from my shoulder story I told. But like when I got into ministry especially it was like as a pastor of people. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Like the
Oh
weight
yeah.
of that, I was like, I need to be the best person. I need
Yeah.
to be able to give everybody the right advice at the right time. I need to know every Bible verse I can quote to people. I need to know
Right.
like everything had to be this way because I'm a people pleaser. At that time, I was up on stage, I was preaching, I was teaching, doing all these different things. So like all of that, it has to be perfect. Like
Mhm.
because I want there's 1,000 people in the crowd that I was preaching to at our church back home. 1,000 people. If one person doesn't like my message, I failed in my opinion. Like
Oh
it's like
yeah.
not okay.
That's tough.
So
Yeah.
all of this was going on all the time. And what happened was early on in my ministry, I got like super super sick, and I would be like throwing up daily, like literally almost every day I'm throwing up, and like we're like, what is going on? Like I'm sick all the time, don't know what's happening. I have no energy. And my wife was like, you got to get checked out. Like there's something seriously wrong with like what's going on. You can't be this sick all the time.
Right.
And so I went to a bunch of different doctors. I had like cameras all over the place. I literally had like an endoscopy. I had all these things to figure out what was going on because they're like, yeah, something's wrong. I'll never forget. I was with Chas and we had multiple doctors literally tell me you have cancer. Like craziest thing in the world. We're
That's
sitting in like
crazy.
these like doctors' offices. Chas is sitting there with me. I remember when in the one doctor said I had colon cancer. Another one said I had esophageal cancer, and I'm like, I'm dying. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, this is literally like I'm like, this is
That's terrifying.
yeah, like this is the end. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm dying. Like I don't know what is going on. And I remember like our church back home was so incredible for a lot of things. And one of the things that I loved is the prayer warriors that we had there. And
Mhm.
so people that could really intercede on our behalf, especially as pastors. And I had our elders team praying for me, our lead pastor was praying for me.
It's awesome.
By God's grace, nothing. Like literally went for tests, like no cancer came back. Didn't have any cancer in my body after these doctors told me I literally
Yeah.
had cancer. And I remember like feeling so vividly and so clearly from God, him just basically saying like, you need to slow down.
Yeah.
And that was my curb moment of
Right.
like I hit the curb and it was like, dude, you got to slow down because if you want longevity in ministry, which I know God has called me to longevity in this, it's not just like, I want you to do this for a year. This is
Right.
what I want you to do for your life
Yeah.
is to be able to share my gospel, whatever format or whatever that looks like might be different, but I know that's what I'm called to do. And so um, it was like, if you want to do this for the long haul, you got to figure this out. And you
Yeah.
can't be pleasing everybody. You can't be doing these things. You need to slow down. And so I hit the curb. And for some people, I don't know if you're listening, and that's maybe where you're feeling. You're feeling burnt out. You're feeling like I'm going downhill at a pace I can't keep up with.
Mhm.
Slow down. Like
Yeah.
it's okay and prioritize yourself because the greatest resource that God has to fulfill the call and purpose that is for your life is you.
Yeah.
And so like you need to be at your very best if you want to be able to do the most and the best you can for God.
Right.
And so take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. Have the hard conversations. Say no to people. Let your yes be yes. Let your no be no.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
stand on these scriptural truths and understand that they're there for a reason and it's to be able to help you live out the best quality of life so that you can have the biggest impact.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I can't end it on a better way. That was the perfect ending.
I love it.
So, yeah, I mean, that's an amazing takeaway. I 100% agree. And yeah, I think if everybody in society did not live a life to please others, but lived a life that was pleasing to God and fulfilling your own calling in God's life, like how much better would the world be,
Hmm.
you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway. All right.
Hey,
Episode 2 down of the Lion's Den. We will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.
appreciate you guys. See you next time.